This 2024 NFL Comeback Player of the Year Award edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their new Pick 8. Sign with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Wednesday, July the 3rd, here to get into our next awards market for the NFL season. That's going to be the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award market. We've already done the MVP market and also Coach of the Year. So if you haven't got a chance to listen to those two episodes, go back and do so. And you can find it on the Propcast podcast feed, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's on Apple. And we also have a SGPN football picks feed as well. So if you want to subscribe to that, you can find it there as well. But joining me here to help me break everything down for this awards market of the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, I've got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What's up, Munaf? I'm good. I'm doing really good. No complaints at all. Excited to jump into another market with you today. As you mentioned, the first two were fun. Doing Coach of the Year, doing MVP, and then we get the ambiguous Comeback Player of the Year. So I'm excited to dive into it with you as well. It's a loaded market, of course, and the award can be pretty interesting who's given to. So we'll talk about it, dive into it. But I'm excited as always to be on the Propcast with you and to be discussing it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more intriguing awards as far as trying to find it's a narrative-based award. Like, we know that, right? The storyline and the narrative, I think, is what jumps off for this Comeback Player of the Year award. And you kind of take a look at some of the past winners for this award. And I mean, we go back over the last 5 years, Chris, it's all been quarterbacks have won the award, right? So last year, I'll start from 2018 on. So Andrew Luck in 2018, quarterback, I think he was coming back from an injury. 2019, Ryan Tannehill wasn't one, I believe, for the COVID year. And then 2021, Joe Burrow. 2022, Geno Smith, when he had that incredible season with the Seattle Seahawks. And then last year, of course, Joe Flacco, what he was able to do in place of Deshaun Watson and for the Cleveland Browns, I should say, as they made the playoffs, as he was the quarterback for that team last year. So, a lot of the prior to last year, Chris, it was a conversation that it's going to be Damar Hamlin. And, we remember what happened with Damar Hamlin, literally passed away on the field. They were able to bring him back, and miraculously, he made a recovery, was able to be on the football field the next year. But, I mean, if that doesn't warrant you becoming an NFL Comeback Player of the Year, that changes the narrative and the story for this award. So, we'll get into the odds like we do here for this awards market for Comeback Player of the Year here. But, Chris, what are your general thoughts when you think about Comeback Player of the Year and how you try to handicap it?
Yeah, you mentioned it, it's a very, very difficult award to try to handicap. Like you said, they should change it to the overcame adversity Player of the Year, because that's what it is, right? It's typically injuries. Some form of adversity had to come within the previous year. It's either injury or a super bad performance, and then you play really, really poorly, and you turn it around. So on top of, I think you said the last 5 in a row, if I was looking at it as well, between 2008 and 2013, it was a run of quarterbacks winning it for 6 straight years as well. So that means 11 of the last 15 years have been all quarterbacks, which to me, it kind of immediately makes me want to look straight towards the quarterbacks, which we'll jump into in a second. But when I was going through the odds, looking at the best odds, there's not a lot of, outside of a couple running backs on the list. It's not and I think Bosa was on the list as well, but about 20th. There's not a lot of guys on the list that aren't quarterbacks anyway. So it's really going to be one of these quarterbacks that either perform poorly, in my opinion, or one of these quarterbacks is coming off an injury, which hint, hint, we got those guys sitting at the top of the list when we talk about odds. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just take a look at the top 8 guys that are favored for this award. 7 of those 8 guys are quarterbacks. The only one we'll get into here would be Nick Chubb at 12-1, who, had this significant knee injury. I mean, just an absolute brutal injury for a guy like Nick Chubb, who's just been absolutely dominant throughout his career. But we'll get into all that here in a second. Once I've told everyone, make sure you guys check out the latest episode of SGP Stories is out on Patreon, and the guys do a forensic file style deep dive on the Bobby Petrino motorcycle accident that cost him his job. Plus, you guys need to make sure to check out my guys, Scott and Terrell, on the WNBA Gambling Podcast. If you love hoops, well, we still have the women on the hardwood floor. They've been crushing it with their locks. They've gotten off to a red hot start, so make sure you guys tap in with my guys, Scott and Terrell, over on the WNBA Gambling Podcast. Yeah, Chris, I mean, look, like you mentioned it, right? It's 11 of the last 15. You talked about it there. 5 straight years now, the quarterback has won this award. And we look at the awards markets right now, and I'm using DraftKings as the awards, as the odds on right now. It's pretty much like I mentioned, 7 of the 8 are quarterbacks. You kind of go down the list, it opens up a little bit more to some of the more defensive guys or running backs that are on the list. Honestly, Chris, I didn't waste my time going down past 50-1 for this award because a lot of that you mentioned, like guys like Joey Bosa are on there at 70-1, Kenton Mitchell 65-1, Bradley Chubb 70-1. It just feels like, again, this is another award that's like the MVP award where it's quarterback driven almost. And because quarterback is always the topic of conversation when you talk about football teams, that it's going to be a guy that's typically going to win this type of award, which is at the quarterback position. So, we'll kind of go through the list here and we'll talk about, what these guys are kind of coming back from and looking at their impact for their respective teams. And we'll talk about obviously which guys we do like for this awards and which guys we don't like for this award. So I'm going to cut this list short and we'll split it here at 50-1 before we get to guys that are 51 or less for this award here, Chris. But anybody at 55 or 55-1 or greater that caught your eye when you were looking at this list?
Not at all. I think let's see. I got well, I'll throw out one name that just kind of super dart throw him.
Yeah.
Looking at Trevon Diggs of the Dallas Cowboys, just because he plays on America's team.
Yeah, quote
right?
unquote.
And yeah, quote unquote. And I mean, of course, he's coming off a season, of course, where he was injured as well. And we know what he can do for this, at the cornerback position.
Yeah.
11 interceptions I'm looking at right now, just 2 years ago for the Dallas Cowboys. He's a really great tackler as well. So, when we think about notoriety, when we think about big markets, there's no bigger market than the Dallas Cowboys. And if he can come in and, have that type of impact that he had in the 2021 season, I definitely think that, Trevon Diggs is, would be worth just a tad bit of a sprinkle. I wouldn't put anything big on it at all, but you can get him at 10,000 to 1, which is a little intriguing to me. 10,000 to 1 over on Bet365 right now. That one to me, I guess, is a bit intriguing. But I'll jump into. I'll get your opinion on him, but I'll also throw out. And this is another long shot, of course, as well, with 55 to 1 over on DraftKings. Bryce Young.
Yeah,
we talked about Coach Kalalis coming in over there, joining from Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's been a really big help for quarterbacks. We watched him help turn around Baker Mayfield last season, getting his career back on track. He also helped Geno Smith, who's won this award, right? We talk about just kind of turning those guys around. Bryce Young also got an uptick in the offensive line. Their offensive line got an upgrade. They also traded for Deontay Johnson, I think, which is good. and an all new coaching staff. This team was at the bottom of the barrel last season. If we religiously talked about him just having to drop back and throw the ball so many times. So after finishing last year with just a 59.8% completion rate, he only threw for 11 touchdowns, had 10 picks, and he was running for his life a lot. So he would be the only dart throw that I see out there that's better than 5,500. So plus 5,000 to 1 here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the point you bring about Trayvon Diggs is a guy that he was filling up the stat sheet, right, with interceptions, and a guy that can also, off of those interceptions, get you a pick six and take it back to the house and add that to the resume as well. Like you mentioned, right, it's because the fact that he does play on the Dallas Cowboys that he's going to get that spotlight, that if he does come back and have a great season defensively, obviously, for this Dallas Cowboys team, which obviously they need. We know what they can do offensively with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and those guys out there, but it's also the fact that defensively this team was just not very good. And if he can come back and provide that spark on the offensive side, and like you mentioned, right, the 11 interceptions that he did have, and if he's able to get close to double digits or even on double digits again, I think there's a great possibility that his name pops up for Comeback Player of the Year award. Yeah, you mentioned Bryce Young, 55 to 1. We talked about this a lot last season, right? Was that he just didn't have the weapons around him, and I still feel like they're not there yet. But he's also in a division where, and I think we talked about this for NFL Coach of the Year award, that it's one of the worst divisions, if not the worst division in the entire NFL. But what's the storyline for Bryce Young? Yeah, he was the number 1 overall pick, so there was some type of expectation for him to perform, right? And that he wasn't able to just because he didn't have, again, the offensive line wasn't there, the offensive weapons weren't there. I mean, when your number 1 guy is Adam Thielen, Chris, we talked about this a lot on the Propcast last year, and no disrespect to Adam Thielen, because he did perform for us. He cost us a lot of tickets last year before the market did catch on to what was going on there in Carolina, or in Charlotte, I should say. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to talk you out of the 55 to 1. I'll throw out a stupid one. And again, like we talked about dart throws, if there is a head coach and a team that can, I don't want to say quote unquote fix him, but give him the opportunity to perform, I still would need a lot more bigger odds than this for Zach Wilson at 100 to 1. He's in Denver now. They have 3 quarterbacks there. We'll see if Bo Nix is going to be the starting quarterback there for the Denver Broncos. But it seems like that if there's an opportunity that he's able to stay competent, and if Sean Payton's able to coach him up, they may be an opportunity there for him at 100 to 1, I think. But again, it's almost like this quarterback award, or this award for NFL Comeback Player of the Year over the past couple of years, has been, hey, you've sucked the previous couple of years. If you come back and have an absolutely fantastic season for your team at that quarterback position, hey, we're going to talk about you for the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. So that would be my dart throw. I mean, there's nothing crazy you want to throw out there, some beer money on it, some pizza money on that. But that's a one that maybe I would consider even at that. And, betting on Zach Wilson, it makes me cringe a little bit there, Chris. But those are I would agree with you about Trayvon, but the other one that my dart throw would probably be Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I see him at 12,500 plus 12,500 over on BetMGM. So people are wanting to throw that dart throw it there, throw that BetMGM. He's coming off a year where, like you said, pretty poor year. He's going to need to play a lot better. Has yet to get double-digit touchdowns in his young career. This is year number 4 for him. So yeah, I'm super dart throw, but I think it's worth it. Like you said, the small gamble here. So I couldn't talk you off.
All right, before we get into guys on this list that are less than 50 to 1, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog will automatically double flex entries so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. The best part, you can win up to 325x your original amount. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Don't miss your chance to try it out now before it is gone. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. And hey, don't forget about the contests that are happening over at the best sports book in the entire country. That is going to be over at Circa. Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions pick 5 NFL teams against the spread each week and compete for $6 million or survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with promo code SGP. Don't have a trip booked for Las Vegas yet before football? Ultimate Contest Weekend is a great time to go out and hang out with Ryan and Sean and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sportsbook in the world from August 22nd through August 24th. All right, Chris. So those are some of the long shots that we may consider here for this award for Comeback Player of the Year. Let's get into the guys that have some of the shorter odds here. And we'll start here with guys that are 50 to 1 or less. And we'll start here with J.K. Dobbins, who is at 50 to 1. And then we'll also include in this list Justin Herbert, 40 to 1, and Justin Fields at 40 to 1. So 2 of the 3 guys I did cross off the list here was number 1, J.K. Dobbins, because they did add Derrick Henry there to the Baltimore Ravens. And I need to double check here if J.K. Dobbins is still there with the Ravens. He is not. So he's moved on to the LA Chargers. So obviously now
Echo,
yeah. So with Eckler gone now you have an opportunity here for J.K. Dobbins to be that guy now in the backfield. And it seems like he should be getting majority of the work there for the LA Chargers. I'm quickly looking at their depth chart here. So it's funny that 2 of the 3, their starter is going to be also a former Baltimore Ravens running back, and that's going to be Gus Edwards. So 2 of the running backs that were there with the Baltimore Ravens for the past several seasons are now with the LA Chargers with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. The thing with J.K. Dobbins is I just need to go out there and see him play games. And I think that's what it comes down to, the simple fact, because you take a look, his rookie year, he played 15 games. He missed the entire 2021 season. 2022 season, he only played in 8 games. And last year, obviously, he suffered the injury in game 1. So, I mean, you also kind of wonder where his mentals are at, coming off of only playing 9 games combined over the last 2 seasons. So, J.K. Dobbins, I think, would be something that I want to keep my eye on, especially with Jim Harbaugh there as the head coach. And then Justin Herbert at 40 to 1. So last year, Justin Herbert played, I think, what was it, 9-10 games? Let me double check here for Justin Herbert. So he played 13 games last year. When I'm looking at it, I'd probably look at quarterbacks that played 10 games or less last year and suffered a significant injury. That was, whether like a torn ACL or something like that. So Justin Herbert, I crossed off the list. And also Justin Fields, I crossed off the list as well. So I don't know who's going to be the starter in Pittsburgh, right? It seems like it's going to be Russell Wilson. So at 40 to 1 right now, I wouldn't consider Justin Fields for this award either. And it's not like he's coming back from anything. He had a great season last year for the Chicago Bears because we knew they were going to get the number 1 overall pick with Caleb Williams and just go in a different direction for the future of their franchise. So Justin Fields, I cross off the list as well. Justin Herbert as well. And then J.K. Dobbins, I'm going to keep my eye on and see what the carries distribution is going to be between him and Gus Edwards here, Chris. So J.K. Dobbins, I put a question mark next to, and then Justin Fields and Justin Herbert, the 2 Justins I cross off my list here, Chris.
Yeah, I took Dobbins off immediately when I saw that he was splitting the backfield, like you said. I also just don't. I'm not really into, like we kind of talked about at the top. I don't really like any of the running backs. Like I just think that, like you said, it's a quarterback award. So that that made me not really look too deep into J.K. Dobbins. Also, the other thing I failed to mention at the beginning, we always talk about the NFL is just it's a pass first league. So it's a quarterback award, pretty much all of them, right? Same thing we said about, as far as the MVP as well. When I look through the depth chart and we talk about Justin Herbert, I've been pretty high on Justin Herbert, but we talked about him losing some of his shiny toys, that depth chart at the wide receiver position with him just having Joshua Palmer there now, losing some guys. I think that hurts a lot. And you have a new coach coming in as well. I don't really like that as much for this Los Angeles Chargers team or for Justin Herbert this year. I will say, to Justin Herbert's credit, I guess, that the Chargers do have the third easiest schedule this year on paper. But like I said, just missing too many weapons there. I think it's going to be difficult for him to have a good season. And we always talk about the Chargers always underachieving. So I crossed Justin Herbert off the list as well. Hear me off. J.K. Dobbins, and then the other one was, who else did you say?
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Yeah. I mean, we have no idea what's going on there. And you mentioned Justin Fields having a pretty good year last year. I guess there is still, room for improvement. I don't think he threw for 20 touchdowns or anything, too crazy. But there could be, like you said, some quarterback competition. I don't think Russell Wilson went there to go sit on the bench. So I do expect there to be some competition there. And that was the reason why I took Justin Fields off the list as well. I think it's better, competition and selections out there. So I'm with you on all three of these here,
All right, we'll keep it moving here on the next block of guys here. We'll go with the next three guys before we get to the top 8. Sam Darnold, 30-1. Kyler Murray, 30-1. And then Tank Dell, 35-1. So immediately crossed off Tank Dell. I know he's my guy, coming back from the injury as well. But again, quarterback award now. And now that you added Stephon Diggs to this wide receiving group of the Houston Texans, there's only one football, right? And I'm not sure that he'll have enough stats for Tank Dell to win this award. Also, Nico Collins had a great year last year as well. So your number 1 and number 2 guys are going to be Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. So I'm not sure that there'll be enough opportunity. I think the opportunities will be there, but I just think the numbers won't be there for Tank Dell. So I crossed him off. Kyler Murray is the one that did intrigue me. I know that he came back at the tail end of last year. And we talked about it when we, talked about MVP and Coach of the Year, that they added some weapons around Kyler Murray, right? They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., and we know what Kyler Murray is capable of, right? I mean, he's a guy that can get you yards on the ground. He can use his arm as well. And maybe the NFC West is a little bit weaker this year. San Francisco dealing with their contract situations, Seattle with the new head coach, the Rams you talked about with Aaron Donald no longer being there. So Kyler Murray did intrigue me, and Sam Darnold immediately crossed off the list as well. For him to be at 30-1 it's absolutely embarrassing here for the books to put this number for him. So of these three guys here, Tank Dell, Murray, and Darnold, Chris, Kyler Murray was the one that intrigued me.
Same, 35-1 over on Bet365. I love, like you talked about, them drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 4th pick. I think he might actually be the best player in the draft as well. And we know what Kyler Murray can do with his legs to extend plays. This was a guy who only played 8 games last year, but before that, double digit, not just double digit, but really good touchdown to interception ratio. QBR has always been pretty good. Completion percentage has always been, pretty good as well. And I like them, continuing to have James Conner back there, somebody that can, at the running back position, that can take the pressure off of him at times. James Conner ran for 1,000 yards last year, average 5 yards a pop. So I love that they, have that balance as well. So yeah, Kyler Murray definitely intrigued me. He was the one guy so far that we've talked about that I like. The other 2 guys, like you said, I kind of, crossed them off the list as well. I want no parts of Sam Darnold. And who was the other guy that you mentioned? Tank Dell. Your guy, Tank Dell. And like you said, not enough footballs to go around. And the expectation is just going to be so great. And he's also not a quarterback. So yeah, I crossed Tank Dell off the list as well,
Yeah, Kyler Murray last year played in 8 games, close to 1,800 passing yards, 1,799, did have 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. See what his rushing numbers last season looked like. They've they didn't really probably want him running around a lot because of coming off that injury. He only had and I say only 244 rushing yards in 8 games. I mean, that's about close to about 30 per game for Kyler Murray. But now having a full off season where the injuries passed him, and now you have new weapons out there, a new offensive system. I think there's an opportunity here for for Kyler Murray to be considered for this award for sure. All right, Chris, before we get over to the next group of guys here for this award, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Rhythm. If you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making them betting both easy and enjoyable. Rhythm's predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help drive you to better AI-backed betting decisions. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here. We'll get over to the next group of guys here. This will be the top 8 guys, and some of these 8 guys, like we mentioned, are going to be quarterbacks. So Russell Wilson 25-1, Deshaun Watson 22-1, and Daniel Jones 20-1. I think it may be the same thing for me. Russell Wilson is a little bit intriguing, but again, when you have a quarterback that's going to be looking over his shoulder because you have Justin Fields behind you, and if he doesn't have a couple good games, that we could see Justin Fields take over as a quarterback over there in Pittsburgh. So I have crossed off Russell Wilson on the list. I'll keep an eye on it for sure. Deshaun Watson at 22-1. I honestly didn't know what to do. I want to get your thoughts on Deshaun Watson, what you thought about him at 22-1 here, Chris. I'm not sure if what the legal stuff that happened with Deshaun Watson and the suspension and all that will play a factor here. But if he goes out and has an incredible season for the Cleveland Browns, leads them to a division title, I think there's definitely an opportunity that Deshaun Watson gets there. But I think maybe the pass haunts him here a little bit. And that may be a little bit biased for me being a Texans fan here at 22-1. Daniel Jones at 20-1. I am not a fan of Daniel Jones, so I crossed him off here as well. But I do like the odds for him at 20-1. It's just the fact that he's on the New York Giants. And again, he's a guy that couple games he could look really, really good for this New York Giants team. But then there's times where he has that stretch of games where he's turning over the football, whether it's fumbles, interceptions, and that just kind of takes away from Daniel Jones. And I think that he'll have to go out and do something like win this division or get a playoff spot for this New York Giants team for them to have, or for him to be considered here at 20-1. Because again, you have 3 other teams in this division with the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Commanders that, we could probably easily see the Giants maybe be the bottom of the barrel of this NFC East division. So this block of guys really didn't intrigue me here from Jones, Watson, and Russell Wilson here. Chris, what do you got?
So I'll start with Russell Wilson, and like you said, too many chefs in the kitchen for me, to know what's going to happen. It's also a new system as well with him coming over. So don't like that as much with him coming over from Denver. So I crossed, Russell Wilson off the list also. And you took the words right out of my mouth. Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones, I'm just not a fan of this guy. He's turnover prone. He's in my division, of course. So I watch the Giants play all the time. 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last season. He also had a terrible QBR. And then you hit on something that I was thinking as well. What skill positions? Because if you're a quarterback, you need somebody to throw the ball to. You need somebody to hand the ball off to. What skill positions do the Giants have on their team that make you think that Daniel Jones is going to have a successful season? Devin Singletary in the backfield, Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, Darius Slayton. Like, they just don't have enough, in my opinion, and they could make me eat my words, but I would go out on a limb and say that they won't. I'm not a big fan, like you said, of Daniel Jones at all. So I crossed him off the list. And then your boy, well, not your boy anymore, but your old boy, Deshaun Watson was somebody That is a bit intriguing to me, Let me see. So we have we have a couple things that stacked against them. The first thing is that the Cleveland Browns do play the third most difficult schedule this year.
Mhm.
That won't
Yep.
sit well for him. And he's been playing so terrible back-to-back years where he had a QBR of just 43. Well, that's actually been below 43. And if you like him in this spot, you have to wonder if he can make it through a full season. Of course, he's not played in either of the last 2 seasons a full complement, just 6 games in both seasons. So if you're betting on him, you really need him to be out there. But I think the opportunity will be there for him. I think
Mhm.
this is probably the best opportunity for. I mean, not just any quarterback. All the starting quarterbacks have options, but I just kind of feel like he has a really good opportunity in this spot. You do have Jameis, backing him up, but
Yeah.
do
Great
you really
point.
want to put Jameis out there? Like, you really want to put Jameis out there? Nick Chubb, how healthy will he be? I know that they didn't draft anybody behind him outside of. I mean, you still got Jerome Ford, but you do got Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
You bring over Jerry Jeudy from Denver. I think probably their biggest offseason acquisition, and you got Elijah Moore too. So we know that the defense is going to keep, at least in their home games last year.
Yeah.
Defense kept the offense on the field, and they stayed off the field. So he'll have ample opportunity, in my opinion. If he can come in with the right mindset, and they can stay healthy. I didn't even mention uh, uh, the tight end play. They had really good tight end as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like. If I had to put a little anything down on this one with these three guys, if it would be looking at Deshaun Watson over Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson easily.
It's also the fact that makes me nervous about Deshaun Watson is that he also has probably have to compete with Nick Chubb, right? He's coming back from that torn ACL injury as well. And we know what Nick Chubb can do. I think for his career, every single season, every single season that he's played, he's averaging more than 5 yards per carry, which is absolutely crazy to think. And again, over his shoulder, Jameis Winston, like you mentioned, you don't want him to be out there, but for whatever reason, because of the personality, everybody loves Jameis Winston. He can go out there throw for 10,000 yards, but he also could throw for 100 interceptions as well at the same time, right? And that's the type of player that Jameis Winston is. So, yeah, again, another one to keep your eye on here. But again, we talked a lot about this in the NBA as well. Is that we really hate when it's two players that are on the same team competing for the same award. And I think that could probably take away votes from each other here. But we'll get over to the next block of guys here. Chris, we'll go with the top on the next block, I should say. So Nick Chubb, we just talked about 12-1. We can expand on him a little more. And then Anthony Richardson at 6-1. So obviously Anthony Richardson last year ended his season very early with that shoulder injury. All indications from what I've seen, Chris, is that he will be back and ready to go for this Colts football team at 6-1. And again, we saw what he's able to do last year for this team. And then I mentioned that I really love Shane Steichen, their head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And you're also in a division where I feel like even though my Texans are in there, I think it's a little bit open. And this Colts team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I know the Texans added all those, the sexy names in the offseason with Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs. But I think Shane Steichen is going to do a great job with this team. You still have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield there for the Colts, Michael Pittman Jr. I've been a huge fan of him ever since he came out of college for this team. So Anthony Richardson, he could get it done with his arm, but also he can utilize his legs as well and rack up the stats. And coming back from that type of injury for Anthony Richardson, there is an opportunity there for him to be there. And then Kirk Cousins 5-1. I don't like it. I think these odds are way too short for a guy like Kirk Cousins. I understand he's come back from an injury as well, but again, brand new team. You just got paid a whole bunch of boatload of money. New offensive system that you're learning as well. So they may be a little bit slow coming out of the gate. I think this ties in a little bit. I think that if Kirk Cousins has a successful season, then you're probably looking at Raheem Morris for Coach of the Year more so than him being comeback Player of the Year, because then he's a guy that, again, if he does have a great season, you could see him possibly getting this award at 5-1 coming back from the Achilles injury. But those injuries, and we've seen this also, and I'll reference basketball a lot, it's just a very, very tough injury to come back from. So Anthony Richardson did intrigue me. I crossed off Kirk Cousins, and again, Nick Chubb if he goes out and has a 1,500-yard season, I think definitely he could be in the conversation there for comeback player of the year, Chris. So what do you think about Cousins, Richardson, and Chubb?
So Chubb, like you said, you kind of competing for the same award. It reminds me a lot of like DeJounte Murray playing with Trae Young. It's like we got two of those same guys. So yeah, I don't really like him. Plus, he's a running back, so he'll have to do something special. And we know that if there is a special running back in the NFL, it probably would be him. But we've seen so many running backs, over the course of time, sustain these season-ending injuries and then not be able to return to the caliber player that they were. Before said injury. So I crossed Nick Chubb off the list as well. Anthony, so we'll go opposite here. Anthony Richardson doesn't intrigue me as much. Like I'm just not I'm not sold, or I think that big on Anthony Richardson quite yet. I kind of want to see him do it, before, we, especially with the odds being 7-1. I would want. I see 6-1 on DraftKings, 7-1 over on Bet MGM. But with the odds being 7-1, I would want something a little bit bigger. I mean, this will be his second year. He didn't get to complete his first year. Of course, he only played 4 games last year before he was, knocked out. I think it was an ACL sprain that required surgery, ACL injury that required surgery last year. And you do mention some good points as far as the depth chart on this team. I mean, if you mentioned good coach, you mentioned the depth chart that the Colts have around him. I love, like you said, Michael Pittman Jr., of course. Jonathan Taylor being in that backfield takes a lot of pressure off him as well. Josh Downs as well. So they do have some pieces around them. I just kind of want to see it a little bit with Anthony Richardson before we crown him. But should he take a big leap? I think so. I just don't like that he only played 4 games before he got hurt. If he would have played a handful more, I think I'd probably be a little more intrigued to take him, especially with the odds being 7-1. Now, Kirk Cousins on the opposite side here, I'll make the case for Kirk Cousins. You mentioned the odds being a little short. I agree with that. You can get a +6. You can get plus 650 over on Bet365, where it's plus 500 everywhere else. So definitely shop around if you do like Kirk Cousins. But a couple things here that stand out to me. I do think that Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta is by far the biggest quarterback improvement of any team so far. Well, not just so far, but just in general. The Falcons also have the easiest schedule on paper in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
So they don't have a tough schedule. I love the signing of Darnell Mooney coming over to a 3-year deal. You still got Kyle Pitts. You got Drake London. Bijan Robinson was somebody that we talked about a lot last year. I'm super interested to see, his expansion from year 1 to year 2, especially given how well he played last year with a terrible quarterback. So I think he'll have a much better season. So I like the talent around Kirk Cousins. I know, like you mentioned, this will be the first year learning the new system. Cousins only played 8 games last season before. He only played 8 games last season. And if he can come back and, kind of traject in that way, I think that this could be a big season for him. He had his highest QBR last season, did Kirk Cousins, since the 2016 season. Threw 18 touchdowns, only 5 picks before getting hurt. So, and we know what one thing we know about Kirk Cousins, if you want him in the regular season or do you want him in the playoffs? You want him in the regular season. This is a regular season award. So I think Kirk Cousins at 650 does intrigue me a little bit here,
So he's going to play, 8 or 9 games. I don't know the exact number, if it's NFC that has the advantage in the home games this year, or if it's the AFC, but he's still going to be in that, that dome, and where weather won't be a factor for him. It's not like that he can't play in weather, because he did play for your Washington football team, or Commanders, whatever you want to call them. So, yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins, he's intriguing. Again, I think that he has great weapons around him. So it'd be interesting to see. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if one team got a couple awards. We saw it last year with my Texans, right? Offensive and defensive player of the year. Should have been coach of the year as well. But well, I think that there's an opportunity here for Kirk Cousins, especially with the weapons that he does have around him. At plus 650. Again, definitely shop around, because these odds can definitely vary from book to book. Like Chris mentioned, plus 650 you can find for Kirk Cousins at for this award at Comeback Player of the Year. All right,
Also,
so
real quick,
go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
that division kind of wide open, right? You got Tampa Bay
yeah,
who won it last year, 9-8. New Orleans, same record. Atlanta finishing 2 games less than that, and I think it's a major upgrade at quarterback over Riddler.
100%.
So yeah. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
I'll see. They still have who's their backup there this year? Is it still Desmond Ritter? Let me take a look here.
Desmond Ritter left, I feel like, right?
Yeah, he left. I think he went over to the LA Chargers.
They drafted Michael Penix with the 8th
Oh
pick. I
yeah,
forgot about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Michael
That's
Penix
right.
Jr. Yep.
Yeah, this is why we do these pods so early, so we can stay on top of the depth charts here. So, yeah, I mean, look, if Kirk Cousins does get injured, God forbid, they still have Tyler Heineke there as well. That was there, with your team there as well. So, yeah, options there definitely for the Atlanta Falcons at the quarterback position going forward. But I really do like the pieces that they have on their skill positions outside of the quarterback with Bijan, Tyler Algier, obviously Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondell Moore, Kyle Pitts. So that's pretty formidable for this Falcons team. We'll see what they're able to do on the defensive side of the football, though. All right, Chris. So the top 2 guys on the list here to round it out, we got Joe Burrow at plus 250, and then we have Aaron Rodgers at plus 125. So I'll start here with Joe Burrow. And I think if Joe Burrow has a great year, you probably just want to take him for MVP. It is my thinking there. That, again, if they go out and win the division and he has an incredible season, being in that the AFC North division, which is one of the best in the entire league, if not the best one in the entire league. And they also have a very easy schedule, right? They have that, I believe it's the 4th place schedule for this upcoming season. And the fact is that, again, people are starting to classify Joe Burrow as an injury-prone player. And look, it is a conversation, right? Because he had the torn ACL, he had the wrist injury last season. But also, let's not forget the fact that he led this Bengals team to a Super Bowl. And just to, fall a little bit short against the Rams a couple seasons ago. So at plus 250, or again, definitely shop around. I would rather spend that money elsewhere, maybe like in the MVP market, than Aaron Rodgers at plus 125. It makes sense. Again, a guy that was lost for the season in week 1 last year, in week 1 on Monday Night Football with the Achilles injury. A lot of expectations for Aaron Rodgers, right? Coming over to the New York Jets and trying to make this team a competitive football team again. And I think that if Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that he'll put up the MVP type of numbers, but if he's able to play 15 out of the 17, 16 out of the 17 games, he's able to lead this Jets team to a playoff spot, I think he will definitely be considered for this award. And again, Aaron Rodgers, former, multi-time MVP award winner. But when we got to talk about plus 125, Chris, it just doesn't excite me on the odds. But again, it would make a lot of sense to me that if he did win the award, just coming off the Achilles injury and, just the stuff that goes on inside the brains of Aaron Rodgers, what we all can't figure out right now. But this is the odds just didn't excite me here, Chris, for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so we'll go Burrow first. Since he did finish last, we know that AFC North division is really, really good. They finished 9-8 last year. You mentioned this as well, 6 easiest schedules. So I like that for Burrow. It's never really easy in that division, but outside of that division, it seems like they're going to have some opponents that they want to face to kind of get him, back on track. And you mentioned the injury prone thing. I think what that has done for Joe, you tell me if you agree with this, but it feels like it's always kind of kept a chip on his shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Like we talk about, quarterbacks kind of falling off after they, get a big contract. And sometimes, most of the time, it feels like we do see that, or they get a little complacent. But Joe, because he's coming back off the injury, I do kind of feel like, same thing. Like they've yet to win that Super Bowl, even though they've been there. Last season, he did throw for 15 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on his way to 2,300 yards and a 67% completion percentage, which is really, really good. I love that, his weapons are still there as well. I think they franchise tag T. Higgins, so he's there. You still got Jamar Chase. I like Mike Gesicki coming over at the tight end position from the Dolphins as well. So I think I know they lost their running back, but I like the weapons that Joe Burrow has. You mentioned Maybe just taking them for MVP. I couldn't talk you off of that either, but
Yeah.
plus 250 line's really short. Couldn't talk anybody off, wanting to go either way. Joe is in a really good position. And then last but not least, if you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, it kind of feels like the fairy tale ended. Not that, it's going to be his last season. I think I did read that he wants to play, between 2 to 4 more years, and we'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
But after rupturing that Achilles, he was 4 snaps into his Jets debut last season.
Yeah.
Kind of sets up really well for him to be successful, especially if the Jets can be successful. Why not give it to a 19-year vet? If there's won 4 MVPs, like you said, right? Jets finished 3rd in their division last season. Only won 4 of their 9 home games as well. They were a negative 87 in point differential. And you think that improve, even though they still are going to be in a tough division with the Bills and the Dolphins looking to have similar performances that they had last season as well. And then I don't know if you mentioned this is or not, but 4th easiest schedule the Jets have this season, which I think also helps Aaron Rodgers out a lot, especially kind of getting back into a groove. And he does have some shiny toys as well. You got Breece Hall still there, Garrett Wilson. I know he's salivating at having a true quarterback out there for him. And you bring in Mike Williams is there as well. So I think it does kind of set up like you said, the odds not the sexiest, just plus 130 over on BetMGM is the best that I could find. But I couldn't talk anybody off of it. This dude's been playing for forever. He knows how to manipulate the game. He knows everything about the game, going into year 19. And I think he is going to be fully healthy to start the season. So barring any kind of injury or setback, it does kind of feel like Aaron Rodgers' award to lose him, to start the season off anyway.
Yeah, and you talk about Joe Flacco last year, but I think it's a different narrative because Aaron Rodgers is expected to take this Jets team to the next level, right? Where Joe Flacco last year was a guy that was sitting on the couch and they brought him up and they said, hey, come be our backup quarterback or be our quarterback, with Deshaun Watson missing that time, and he was able to lead them to the playoffs. But I think the expectation for Aaron Rodgers is a whole hell of a lot different than what it was for Joe Flacco. So, look, couldn't chalk you off like you mean. He is the odds-on favorite, and it seems like it is obviously his award to lose here. So yeah, plus 125 for Aaron Rodgers. I think that he's a guy that can definitely carry that expectation on his shoulders and do his best to guide this Jets team to getting back to the playoffs, if not possibly, maybe even possibly winning this division for the New York Football Jets. All right, Chris. So that is pretty much the list that we went through here. We'll wrap it up here with guys that we will definitely putting some money down on here. If you want to throw out like 3 guys that you like here on the list that we did talk about here, Chris.
Yeah, let's go super duper long shot like we talked about here, Munaf. Let's go Trevor Diggs just because he's plus 12,500. Like I think like we talked about, I think his services will be needed in that secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. The eyes will be on him. And if he can get a couple pick sixes, like you said, force a few fumbles, score the football for Dallas as well, I do think that, he's worth a super long shot. And then I'll go as we come down the odds, I'll go Kyler Murray. I think that his chances are pretty good. Like we talked about, Marvin Harrison Jr. being, the 4th pick is definitely helpful for him. James Conner being there as well. And he'll get a full season to acclimate. I expect him to use his legs a little bit more. You mentioned him only rushing for about 30 yards per game, 5.5 per carry last season. I think that improves because he's a dynamic player. So I do like Kyler Murray at 35-1. I think that's a pretty good one. And then as we come down the list, I'll also just a little sprinkle on Kirk Cousins, just because they do have the easiest schedule on paper. He has a lot of the toys around him as well, with Drake London being there, Bijan. I really, really love the core of guys that he has there. And Falcons also have the 2nd-rated offensive line heading into the season behind only the Lions. I forgot to mention that as well. I think that'll help keep Kirk Cousins upright as somebody who watched him for a really long time in that burgundy uniform. He can be rattled when that pressure comes. So with them having the 2nd-best offensive line, I do think that helps a lot with him, coming back. And how many is that? That's 3. Yeah, and I like you said, the odd on favor of I couldn't talk anybody off Aaron Rodgers. Like I know it's plus 130. We don't know how the season is going to go, but if you expect them to be healthy, you do expect this team. I think they're 11th best plus 2,500 Super Bowl odds here, Munaf. So
Yep.
if you expect the Jets to, have some success bringing over Mike Williams, having Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall being there, for them to kind of turn their season around, and you think it was Aaron Rodgers who, was a big part of them being a minus 87 in point differential last season. I do think Aaron Rodgers is worth a look as well. I wouldn't go super heavy on it, even though he is the odds-on favorite, but why not give it to, like I said, the 19-year vet who's won 4 MVPs? I definitely think he put the work in this offseason, because if not, I think he just left. I don't think he would play football anymore, So, and you also, last thing I'll mention, when the game is taken away from you, the way that it was, he literally had to watch every snap last season out of the 4 that he took for the Jets. That sometimes that can kind of, give you an appreciation for the game, right? So Aaron Rodgers plus 130, couldn't talk anybody off there either,
Yeah, you make some great points for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, again, it's people love when we talk about these award markets to play that fun long shot, but at the same time, we have to sit back and pull back the curtain and look at the odds on why a guy is odds on favorite at plus 125. And a lot of people say, look, I don't want to tie up my money for X amount of months for only plus 125. And sometimes that's the downfall when you're looking at these future markets. So a couple guys I'll throw out there as well, like you mentioned, Kyler Murray, 100% we agree on at 30-1, 35-1. Definitely shop around, get the best number, as we always say. Again, if he's able to lead this Arizona Cardinals team to the playoffs, whether it's a wild card spot, whatever the case might be, I think that the opportunity will definitely be there for Kyler Murray at 30-1. Also didn't mention when we talked about the Cleveland Browns is that do we see back-to-back years a Cleveland Brown player winning the comeback player of the year award, right? Because we talked about Joe Flacco last year, and then Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson on the same team, obviously with the Cleveland Browns here. So I am intrigued by Nick Chubb because I know what he's capable of doing. And again, if I can find this anywhere, 14-1, 15-1, and Chris, if you're able to find me the best number on Nick Chubb there for the upcoming for this award here, I think that he would definitely be worth a sprinkle here for me. And then I talked about the long shot of all long shots, Zach Wilson. I mean, again, it's a fun bet. It's something that with the Denver Broncos having a rookie quarterback, I'm not sure that they're going to throw him completely out there, but Zach Wilson, the opportunity of being in a new system, being with Sean Payton, I think that's the biggest thing because he had Robert Saleh, who's not very a offensive-minded head coach, where you have Sean Payton that maybe can revive him just a little bit. And who knows? I mean, we've seen crazier things happen for in the NFL. So yeah, so Kyler Murray 30-1. I am intrigued by Nick Chubb 12-1, and then I'll throw out Zach Wilson there as well for the comeback player of the year award. And again, like Chris mentioned, I couldn't talk anybody off of the odds-on favorite, which is Aaron Rodgers. You find a better number there, Chris, for him?
18-1, if over on Bet365 for Nick Chubb.
That's a pretty good number, I think, for Nick Chubb coming back from what he suffered last year for this team.
And the last thing, I mentioned about that, because I'm just thinking about it as you're saying it's processing it. And what if we see Kyler Murray? I mean, not Kyler Murray. What if we see Deshaun Watson, not play his third straight year, right? Not finish his third straight year. If they have Jameis Winston out there, I can imagine that Nick Chubb, kind of takes over that backfield again, and they, just kind of pound the rock like we've seen, the Browns do for so long. So yeah, you kind of talking me into Nick Chubb a little bit here, I think that could definitely be worth a look, especially because the odds are so good. It's so much better for him. Granted, he's a running back, and we talked about not being too high on running backs, but he does have the impact that a quarterback can have with just what he can do with the football and his ability to be able to score the ball, take the pressure off your offensive coordinator by just running it, because he's going to get 4.5 to 6 yards of pretty much every single carry. So long as he's coming back off that knee injury, and we don't know about, like you said, about Deshaun Watson and what mental state he's going to be in. Also, whether the NFL would even give it to him after the allegations, and the charges that were brought up against him as well. So could just be a bad look, and they don't want to give it to him as well. So yeah, I like the look on Nick Chubb here,
Love it. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Propcast NFL Comeback Player of the Year Awards market in the books. Like I mentioned, Chris and I have already done MVP and Coach of the Year odds. So again, go back and check out those episodes. Plenty of time for you guys to get to those before we do get to the NFL season for the 2024-2025 year. So we still have some more awards markets to get through. We're probably going to do 2 next week. After that, I'll be going on vacation for a couple weeks, but I definitely want to leave you guys with at least a couple episodes to kind of get through, and then we'll come back, wrap up the awards market, and then we'll get into our division previews as we usually do every single year with our season-long player prop bets for the upcoming season. Chris, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Nah, man, I think this was fun. I really enjoyed going through this market. It's interesting. Like I called it at the beginning, I call it an ambiguous market because you never know which way it's going to go. But I think we hopefully we gave some really good insight to at least how we're kind of thinking about the awards. So that's really all I got, man. Enjoy whatever it is that you're betting on right now, whether it's MLB or WNBA. Definitely leave us a review if you guys are watching or listening, whatever podcast platform that you are streaming on. And we appreciate everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, 100%. Again, guys, make sure to get over on YouTube, subscribe to the Propcast YouTube channel. We'll be doing our shows here for the NFL season on this channel specifically. And then when NBA comes around, we'll be here on the Propcast channel here as well. So do us a favor, go and subscribe to the Propcast on YouTube. And also make sure you guys follow Chris on Twitter. That's at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. We'll talk to you guys next week, getting into 2 more award markets. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.